What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, myself, Scott McNally, and we are brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there for high-quality, third-party tested supplements. Let me know if you have any questions about any of their protein powders. Check out the Team Skip blend. They've got a bunch of good stuff over there, like all your basics, all the meat and potato supplements that you need. They've got them. Like I said, TrueNutrition.com, code THINK, supplementsource.ca for Canadians. They've got great deals that change week to week. Like I'll see an All Max protein powder for $10-15, literally, because it's on a closeout deal. So if you like good deals and you need some supplements, check them out. And of course, thank you to Patreon. We've got a bunch of Patreon stuff today. We're going to rip through some questions. Andrew and I, we're both on the clock right now, meaning we're going to have to eat sooner than later. So we want to make sure we get down to business here, take care of you guys. As always, by the way, comment with questions on this episode because we're going to need questions for the next show. In likes, comments, all that stuff, all those things help to boost the show. You can, hit the bell, subscribe, all that stuff if you want to see more of us. So anyway, jumping straight in, we got a physique critique, and I wanted to make sure I didn't forget this one. So I'm going to bring up a couple pictures. I'll bring up a front and back shot first here and let you guys take them in. And then from there, I am going to, we can see what he tells us on the message too. So here's a front shot. Here's a back shot. Kind of funky angle.
I like the structure. I like the shoulder to waist ratio is pretty impressive. You have any stats on him? Just not that it changes the look of his physique at all, but just for perspective.
Let's see. He says, so this is Philip. He's from Germany, 22 years old. Started bodybuilding in 2021 at 18 years old. So he's off to a damn good start, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. Just to give some context, these pictures are from, let's see. So he also sent me some competition pictures. 5'5". He competed at 58 kilograms. Let's see. Then sent some pictures from 2024. The other pictures are from my current check-in yesterday at 84.5 kilograms. He says in his first push phase, week after a 12-week cruise and diet. So he's got a coach that he's working with. It was partners James Gomes, or Jordan Gomes, who's partner of James Hollingshead, and he was very happy with the work that they did last time.
Okay, we're not going to get in trouble for critiquing him, right? We're not going to have Hollingshead messaging me going, "What did you say that for?"
This James sucks. You got to do a coach, yeah, or Jordan, yeah.
So first thing I'm going to say is I love the upper body. I think his quads need a little bit more work, a little bit more sweep, more adductor. So I think, and I'm sure, him and James Hollingshead his coach, Jordan. Are they're probably prioritizing the lower body with training. The other thing I noticed from his stage shots was that he was kind of deficient in glutes. Well, so the legs actually look more balanced here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, man.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm glad you did.
Because I would not have expected that. Okay.
Yeah. So he's just one of those guys, and I can relate to this too. As I used to get bigger and heavier, I actually felt like body parts looked smaller and flatter and fatter.
Sure.
In a sense, and that's just some guys like a Carlos Thomas Jr., who we're going to have on in a couple of weeks. When his off season, his dimensions just look wackier and wackier. And then he gets in shape. Some guys, like in the off season, you kind of lose some of that pizzazz, that wow. But so I would say, like right now, either he had a massively great upper body push this last go run from his contest season, and it kind of has left his legs behind, or he's just one of these guys that his legs come out more as there's more detail, the layers of skin kind of shed away, because his stage shots don't make his legs look weak at all.
Yeah, I wonder too. Sometimes, like I notice that I tend to hold more fat in my upper body, more water in my upper body versus in the legs. You know what I mean? Kind of like some guys, their arms don't really hold a lot, but then the torso starts looking bigger as they get filled out. So as that torso comes down, maybe it sounds like it matches better,
Yeah.
Or it looks like it would.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed No, go ahead, Skip. Go ahead.
Well, I just say at that body fat level, I'm impressed. Not body fat level like it's egregiously high, but this off-season photo for him to be able to pull a vacuum That reeks of youth because he doesn't have that intra-abdominal fat around his guts yet, so that's good.
I'm going to say also, coaches today, we all harp on vacuums year round now. Like even in your off season when you're fattest, do your vacuum so that you're not playing catch up for the first 5-10 weeks of your posing season. Learning how to like pull them back in, like keeping that a general level of control, because he's doing an excellent job here.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to also say was I feel like he needs to prioritize a little bit more glute mass. Can you put up that back shot again from his stage shot?
Yep. Here we go.
I feel like his glutes are a little bit flat there. Like, and it's not like an amazing shape, right? Like this isn't a shape and structure guy necessarily. He's got good wide shoulders, but I feel like the glutes just aren't projecting enough, and maybe I've been looking at too much bikini where you need to have that projection, but I feel like he's obviously in crazy shape. Like his condition is excellent here.
Ron Bartlow's with us. He's like, look at that great picture of Ron.
I noticed your arm veins, Ron. You look good, buddy.
He's always lean
I
up.
noticed the same thing.
What's up, Ron?
Yeah.
Steve's with us too. What's up, Vigorous Steve? We'll get back to you.
Oh yeah, he is. And then from this back shot, lats. I think just a little bit more lat width. It looks like he's also kind of bringing his shoulder blades together a little bit. I think maybe he could relax those and get more width. Yeah, and then I noticed on the current posing pic, I think he's leaning back just a little too much on his back shot.
Yep, I would agree with that.
You're not leaving much. You're not leaving much for me, Andrew. I completely agree with pretty much everything you said. No. That's good. That's cool. There is probably more retraction there in that pose that needs to be. I'm glad that you brought up that stage pic again for the glutes, because initially I thought, you know what, those are awful big glutes in contrast to the quad size, which would, and I'm reaching here, but I'm wondering if the training that he's doing for his legs, and I'm going by this picture primarily here, with his current status, his current physique here in the off season. If his leg training is, let's say, squatting and it's not terribly quad dominant, I'm going to go against you on this one, Andrew, and only say this. I would rather see more quad dominant training than I would to put more into the glutes. I think what you're seeing with the glute, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's almost kind of wide hipped. But the glute, like the glute max, could arguably be better developed. But here's the thing. Is he going to be able to increase or thicken that glute max kind of like the inside or in between the hip and the glute without the hips getting more muscular too and arguably getting wider? I don't know. That's a tough call. So I'd love to see that programming. And I'm quite certain that his coach is on that. I'm sure that he's not going, watching the show right now going, I didn't think about that. I didn't see that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I'm, not taking credit here from the coach. I'm sure he sees it. But it would be hard to do one without the other. And I know if I have to pick, and you probably would say the same thing, I still want more quad size.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Definitely quad size. And I think the posing, really, we can all use more back, width and size, that you're never going to get too big of a back or too big of shoulders. So if he can widen up that shoulder to waist or shoulder to hip ratio, will get better anyway, not necessarily with the hips having to come down. So I think he's in a good spot. I wish I had genetics like that when I was that young. As far as a structure standpoint, I think that's great.
Yeah, he's making fast progress too. Check this shit out. Shout out. This is from his first show to his second show, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't see what the difference in time was. But yeah, it's huge. You keep doing that. You do that every time. I don't care what you're growing. Just keep growing, period. And you're going to be better than most of us.
Look at
just 30,
Can you put that up real quick again too? Just, I want to point out, this is youth, because this isn't a shot at him. This is just an observation. It's boy face, man face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like going from, senior in high school or 18 years old to like 21. That's how the body can transform like that at that time. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he looked good as an 18-year-old for a first-time show too.
Sure.
So I don't want to take credit from that, but his improvement's been awesome. And who knows, in 3, 4, 5 years, he might be a household name that we're talking about in the 212 stage. So it sounds like him and his coach have good plans, and his coach is doing a great job with him. So shout out to Jordan.
All right, so we got some stuff in the stream I see, and we got Vigorous Steve with us. He asked Skip about his cats. Steve's up to 9 cats right now.
Oh, no kidding. That is impressive. Yeah, mine are resting up so that they can wreak havoc, at 2 o'clock in the morning. He knows, I'm sure.
That's your normal hours anyway, so that's fine.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Do your cats do that because they know you're up, or is that just their normal cat behavior?
No, I think it's especially the Bengal and the Savannah, because they have a little bit more wild in them. They're not just your typical mutt cat. They do that night thing. They would love to be outside prowling around the neighborhood, I'm sure, at 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah.
Here's a fun one from our questions off previous episodes and from the group over at Facebook. By the way, guys, I know Facebook isn't the thing anymore, but we do have a Facebook group over there, and it's a good community of small group of people, all like-minded, and everybody's really respectful. So if you want to join us, we'd love to have you over at the Think Big Facebook group. What movements, equipment, lifts do you guys go to when trying to specifically focus on the lateral head of the tricep?
This is a good one. Yeah, this is a good one.
I know you'd like this. I thought of you.
Yeah, this is my YouTube material right here. This is on the list.
All right.
And we got our first show recorded on Monday. But anyway, I am going to go against the grain on this one. I posit that you can change the stress on the triceps by whether it be, the shoulder position or things like that. I know that I'll get beat up by certain people for that, but I'm just gonna, and I'll say this just to prove my point and why I think this. I started doing a reverse, like an easy curl bar attachment on a cable for press downs with an undergrip. I have to use my straps because I can't keep the bar deep into the palm of my hand. If I don't, it'll end up wanting to come out of my hands. That will brutalize my outer head if I use it as an opener. It's not a big number movement. It's almost like I'm using it as an opener. I'm using it as kind of a pre-exhaust. But the next day, I will be sore. If I have not done that movement in 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that, I will be sore on that outer head, and that is what I'm going off. So I understand that the tricep, the elbow, the tricep, it's a single angle joint. It's not a multi-angle joint. I get that. But I still think that, and a good example is the long head of the tricep. You have to open up that angle. You have to put that long head in a kind of a stretched position. I don't think that the long head is working very hard on, say, like a close grip bench press versus an overhead extension with a dumbbell or an easy curl bar. So that's one example there. Obviously, the only head of the tricep that attaches to the scapula is the long head. That's why that angle has to be open. So there are other nuances there, but we don't have time for that. But the point is I think, and I will go on record as saying, that you can change the focus. Can you change it dramatically? No, probably not. But you can still hit that area harder, the outer head. With I personally, I like a hammer strength dip as well to finish, because I feel that and to prove my point on that, don't train at all if you go on a break and you don't train for 6 or 8 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, anywhere in there, and you go back to just doing a bench press, tell me that the outer head of your tricep is not going to be sore the next day after training chest with a lockout, using your lockouts, like full range of motion on bench press. That outer head is going to be sore. I think the soreness says if it's sore in this area of that muscle is being hit harder than the area of the muscle that's not being hit. Yeah. Prove me wrong.
I don't think many people would disagree with you that you can target your tricep. I mean, even just a simple, very basics, straight bar tricep press down with an underhand grip, like you're talking about, you can feel that difference in that moment when you go from side to side. So I don't think there's anyone that would be like, oh, that's outlandish. You can't just target one.
I don't know about that.
I mean, well, here's the thing: 'cause we're not saying that you're not engaging the other heads of the triceps to complete that movement at all. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying that it's putting a priority of the stress on a particular head of the muscle, which I think that's. I mean, if that were the case, then why wouldn't we just do only side laterals for our delts? You know what
Without
I'm saying?
naming names, there are at least two people I can think of that say you literally only need one extension movement for tricep, arguing that a cable press down, even a one-arm cable press down, will fully develop the triceps evenly, and it does not change based on elbow or shoulder position. And I find that to be absolutely absurd.
Those people probably also think that, bodybuilding prep just comes into calories in, calories out. It's a simple and mathematical equation.
It may be, but that's the scientific new age that we're in that I always struggle with. It's not that there's not some truth to what they're saying. It's not an absolute, and that's what bothers me. And people take that away, even though that's not the information you might be giving. In this particular case, it was with this person, but the takeaway is that all these other movements and all these other angles and elbows, it doesn't matter. And that's a bad
They better have nasty arms and nasty triceps in particular if they're walking around positing that, then. You know what I'm saying? Like that better be there. They got to have Ernie Taylor style triceps. You know what I mean? But just a quick answer, I agree with you. I like the dips. I like doing body weight dips or even weighted dips. The hammer strength dip machine, I think, is another good one. And then the underhand extension that you mentioned. I think those are great. That's a great place to start.
Only thing I'll throw in is I would like to see his triceps, the guy who asked the question, before we even answered it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, what's the size of your arms right now? Do you need to? Because a lot of times I know guys I've heard like, what do I need to do to get better shape in my lower pec? How do I get that to round out more? Or how do I focus more on the upper pec? My upper pec is weak, and then when I look at it, I'm like, no, dude, you just need more pec. Period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so make sure that you have. What are we going to say? 18-inch arms before you even worry about, anything specific.
Specialization and prioritization. Yeah.
Let me throw in one thing real quick to see if you guys have noticed the same thing. Obviously, because I've trained for 40 years, I noticed this and I can see it clearly. When you first start training, when I started training triceps, what is the most predominant head of the tricep that gets developed visually before anything else? The outer head. Right?
Yeah.
You notice that outer head and you're like, oh wow. And as I get older, I'm like, well, where did my outer head go? It didn't go anywhere. It's that the medial and the long head have grown so much in relation to the outer head. And I would argue this. I would say that because remember, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, about 10, 12 years ago, we started getting into more of the neutral grip dumbbell extensions, whether it be on an incline, whether it be on flat. I think that has really helped, that neutral grip and that movement. It's really helped the size of the medial head to become so much larger. And I'm beginning to question if it might not be a great idea. It might not be a great idea.
I think it's a good idea because guys that would typically use a straight bar for that, always after 4 or 5 weeks, they're like, oh, my elbows are on fire. And then they can't train their arms for 2 weeks. So I think it's a way to be able to train in that movement without getting the tendonitis and the other itises, involved. So if it keeps you training, I think there is a positive. But then I think you're right, though, Skip. You should probably be prioritizing the longer head.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in, and if we are providing value to you today, let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell. We have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. All right, how about this one? What's the optimal dose for generic HGH when it comes to fat loss and hyperplasia? I know I'm going to get the comments, bro, go pharma, generic sucks, but I just don't have the money to spend on pharma-grade growth, so I'm sort of stuck with generic.
I'm not ever going to say generics suck. Yeah, I know, right? That's where I was going to. But I'm never going to say, for the record, that generics suck. I do not think they suck. I used them. All I'm saying is I prefer the farm grade. That's all it is. It's just a preference. That's it. But yeah, I'm with Andrew. As much as you can tolerate based on sides too. Because if you're waking up 4 times a night and you have to walk around and shake your arms out and it's getting in the way of your sleep and your recovery, okay, that could be a detriment. You want to step up to those bigger doses, but the more you can take,
I miss my
not like
hands falling
AAS.
asleep. You know, my hands
And,
used to fall
not
asleep.
falling
And then,
asleep. I'm talking about dead and painful. Like you don't just roll over. You have to get up and walk around and move them. And it's like, oh, those were the black tops for me. I just could not. If that was the only growth that I could ever use, I might not use it. It just killed me.
I guess, I don't know. I have a different, I'm not going to say pain threshold, but I don't mind shit like that.
I hear what you're saying.
Lets me know my
You know,
pH.
like
my growth.
if my arms could be 22 inches year round, and it meant that I had to sleep like that every night and wake up and walk around the house twice or whatever, sign me up today. You know what I mean? Like I am willing to take that side effect. Just like, you know, obviously there's some side effects that like I don't want the heartburn from, say, too high of a dose of like a trenbolone or something like that. You know, because if you can't eat, you can't grow at all. But, and I get what you're saying. If you can't sleep properly, you're not recovering properly, you might not be growing. But you're probably growing if you're using 10 to 15 units of GH. And to me, that side effect is more than worth it.
Okay, but in my particular case, here's my defense. I can go so much higher. That was only like 6 IU. But I can go so much higher with, as an example, farm grade.
Yeah.
And not have anywhere near those sides. I got an odd one for you. I went from 15 or 12, whatever it was. I've been all over the place. But when I backed off to TRT, I came down to 4. Within a month, I started having my hands and my arms going a little bit more, or far more numb, actually, because I didn't have it that much at the higher dose. I'm yet to get somebody to be able to explain that one. Other than, this might actually be the case. My body fat level was a lot higher. And when I say higher, I certainly wasn't fat, but it was higher than when my dosing was high because I was so lean in that cut phase that the water retention, obviously the more body fat you carry, you know, whether it be AAS or GH, you're going to hold more water. And where does it store? In between the fat cells, not in the fat cells. Don't ever make that mistake, listeners, to say that water is held inside the fat cell, because it is not. But around those fat cells. And that's why you tend to carry more water in your fatter areas, because you have more fat there, and the water will basically end up in those areas or you'll notice it there first because there's more.
All right. See what else we have here. By the way, that was Philip. He's with us too in the stream, and he mentioned he started 3 IU, and he's like a week and a half in. He said his weight is up 4 pounds. Nice. Calorie intake and expenditure is unchanged. But he's saying, how do I get rid of the water retention?
What? Get leaner.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Do you really want it? Like, is it good water retention or is it bad water retention? Right. You know what I mean? Like, for me, GH water retention was like 99% good all the time. Like intracellular, walking around with a massive pump. You get up in the morning to drink a cup of coffee and you're like, oh my God, I got a pump in my bicep already. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe take a step back for a minute, evaluate. Yeah, you're up 4 pounds, and does your mind automatically say, oh my God, I put on 4 pounds, that's too much too quickly. Am I viewing that as negative? Like, what's your physique look like? Are you looking full and round all the time in a good way? Like, if that's the case, then you know, keep doing it.
Yeah.
What's this one here? It says, good afternoon. What's the best way to break through a weight loss plateau? I've lost 150 pounds. Hell yeah. Great job, man. This is Ryan. Lost 150 pounds since October 2023, 41 years old, 240 pounds, 6 foot tall. He says 20 to 40 minutes of cardio 6 days a week, weights 3 days a week. And then he adds, currently consuming 17 to 1,800 calories a day, shooting for 200 to 220 protein, around 120 to 150 carbs. I'm trying to build and maintain muscle while continuing to lose weight.
If I want to lose 150 pounds, I'd have to get a divorce. But I'm pumped. Rim shot right there. Rim shot. Yeah.
It was good.
But my first question would be, are you progressing now in the gym? Is your strength going up? I've said this as a basic rule. I don't want to make it any, this black and white. But it is kind of a blanket rule. If your strength is going up in the gym, there's really no way that you're losing muscle tissue. If you're getting stronger in bodybuilding rep ranges, you're building muscle tissue. Could you be building more if you were taking in more calories? possibly. But then that can also go against you potentially losing more body fat. So if what you're doing is working, I always said, Mama said, you don't fix what ain't broke. You ride it until the wheels fall off, or at least until that progress slows substantially before you start playing around with stuff or getting greedy. Consistency is better than getting greedy and trying to get better benefits. If the consistency is there, ride it.
Well, so he did hit a plateau. So he has been. I think he's reached that point. But I will say, with the information he gave us, I don't feel like he was doing all that much to be able to lose it. Like 150 pounds, I was expecting I'm up to 2 hours of cardio a day.
Yeah.
I'm fasting, whatever it might be. But that's a very, you had great results, man. But I would say, we don't have athletes continuously diet for 2 years at a time. So what I'm saying is, you might just need a diet break and a very controlled restructure, build your metabolism back up a little bit, get some labs done, make sure, your thyroid levels are working efficiently, make sure your hormone levels are optimal if you're not using PEDs. Because, when I've seen it when people lose 100 pounds, a lot of times their testosterone levels start to tank. Even if they've lost a lot of positive weight, they've lost tons of fat, just that swing, and maybe they were 500 nanograms a test when they started, and then they lost a good amount of weight and their test might have gone up to say 800 because they're much more efficient now. But then they got to more extreme dieting, longer durations of dieting, and now their testosterone's down to a hypogonadal or right around a 300 nanograms level. So what I'm saying is you probably need a little bit of a diet break in, 6 weeks. Structurally adding calories in, pulling back on your cardio. Because if you've just been doing steady state for, it sounds like a year and a half, nonstop, I'm really surprised you were able to get that much off just doing 20 to 40 minutes cardio. You might need to change the mode of cardio for a while and go into something like a HIIT, because our bodies are going to adapt to what we're doing. And there's no way that you're not more metabolically efficient a year and a half later of doing, 40 minutes of cardio a day and stripping all that fat off. So
I would even throw out a second option of cycle your cardio out.
Yep.
You're talking about changing it. Not against that. Not a bad idea. But you could actually cycle it right out. Take it out for a couple weeks at a time. Put it back in or come back at a much lower level. And just to throw the guy a bone, when we're talking about incrementally stepping up calories, maybe something like, you add 200 or 300 calories for a week per day and see how you feel from that. And maybe that's enough to kind of spur things. If not, you can add another couple hundred calories. You don't want to make big jumps.
Yeah.
But if you can, and my rule typically is if you can add the calories and you hold your weight, that's beneficial. That's huge.
Yep.
Because essentially those calories are a wash. So you're a wash from a standpoint of a body fat standpoint, but you're feeding. Anytime you can feed your body more calories, you're feeding. You're throwing gas on the fire as far as metabolism. So once you do get to the point where you do start, say you go 3 or 4 weeks and you start, okay, now I'm up a pound. I was up a pound last week. Then start cutting them back a little bit. And you are still going to be significantly higher than you were when you started that increase. So you should start dropping again, and your metabolism will be in a much more optimal place at that point.
Yeah, and
So
he did say too his test levels are 416, or they were in February, and he's totally natural. So, there could be something to that. And listen to it, the progress that he was able to make. He said, what did he say? He lost 150 pounds, and so he's 240 now. So there's a term I like to use called the easy weight, like the easy fat. Like he got rid of the easy fat, and then he got into the harder stuff. But I would say this: I love that both of these ideas of the diet break. I love the way you laid that out, Skip. Like you literally gave him a solid take-home point that he could try applying this week. As you're saying too, Andrew, of just slowly, trying to build back up, see what happens, and maybe adding 100 carbs or whatever that might speed it forward. And if he does take a cardio break, he said 20 to 40 minutes. And I never tell my clients you should do 20 to 40 minutes of cardio per day this week. I'll tell them 35, or I tell them 40, or I tell them 45. Yeah, exactly. And I want your heart rate here. So if he does follow those directions, or whether he doesn't, maybe he just keeps pushing, you might be at a point where you've lost the easy fat now, and now it's going to take getting a little bit more specific with it. Because he said I shoot for 120 to 150 carbs, 200 to 220 protein. Start maybe locking things in too, so that you've got that consistency, and then you can better track it.
Yep,
absolutely.
Oh, if you're in the market for protein powder, check out TrueNutrition.com. They literally have like every protein powder under the sun. I go with their cold filtered whey isolate or their Team Skip blend. I prefer the chocolate peanut butter cup, but there's a few flavors that I like. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Victoria, my wife, she gets the pea protein isolate. It's rare to find a pea isolate. Most of them are concentrate, so the isolate is super low in carbs. Regardless of your diet, they will have a protein powder for you, and you get to flavor it how you want and buy it by how many pounds you want. So check them out, TrueNutrition.com. They're the first company that ever supported our podcasting, so we support them. You can support us by shopping with True Nutrition and using our code THINK. I know what this is because I saw the questions. I know what this is. I'm just going to put it up on the screen.
Oh, yeah. Someone asked about my diet.
This is Andrew's diet right now.
Yep. I pretty much eat the same thing every day, just I swap in an intra, and I usually pull, my carbs. Some meals I'll pull them down to 50 grams. Some meals I'll keep them around 75-ish. So I'm kind of a half bodybuilder. I half, measure everything meticulously. I kind of half not. So,
well, you're not dieting for a show right now either, or anything like that. You're.
But even last year when I got in good shape, I was doing the same thing I'm doing now, where, like I measure my rice out, but I'm not like measuring out 100 grams of banana. Like I'll eat a medium-sized banana. I'll measure out the oils and stuff like that. Yeah. But I'm not. A slice of sourdough bread is typically 2 ounces, which is about 25 grams of carbs. I'm trying to like match up what I think is a uniform piece of sourdough bread. So one might be a little longer than the other slice if I'm having 2 slices, so they equal out about 50 grams for those meals. But my last meal or my 5th meal of the day is awesome. It's I make a burger with sourdough bread, slice of cheese, some lettuce, tomato pickle. It's amazing. You don't even feel like you're dieting. And then actually my last meal is awesome too. I use one of the Ninja Creamies. So. Yeah,
I cut the cheese out. So I had been using cheese, and then I controlled the cheese, and now I'm just like, you know what? We're just going to take a cheese break for now. Get the extra calories out of there. What about this one? This is from YouTube. It says, what about fasted workout in the morning? I have to work out at 4:30 because I have to be to work at 6.
Let me time out 1 second before we get to this. I don't know if this bugs the shit out of you guys, but when people that are on military time, I assume this guy's a military. He says 04:30 and 06. So when someone's like, I have to be there at 21:30 or something like that, and I'm like,
you start counting on your fingers.
Yeah,
just talk like the rest of us. Just say it's 11:30 at night or whatever. Like
okay, he means 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm like Chad GPT. What is 14:30, and and I know you can start at 12 and add 2, but I know. But when you're doing 18 things at once and you're trying to get back to people quickly, it's like help your coach out and just talk to them.
Speaking layman's terms.
But anyway,
fasted. Okay, I'm going to do as I say, not as I do. I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, I'm going to say, if you can eat before you train, this is my perspective on it. If you can eat before you train, I think it's more optimal. It's more beneficial. That being said, some of the best gains, unfortunately, that I made, I was DC training. It was in the early 2000s, and I did it for almost 4 years. I had a regular job. I was building the business at that time, and I had to train fasted. And you know what? It worked really well. My only argument would be if I had to do over again, could it have been any better? And this game is about optimization, right? I mean, that the vast majority of us, even if we're not competing, we want to be as optimal as we can. So I say get a meal in if you can. If you can't, no, it probably isn't going to be the death of you as far as gains. But I will say this. If you're going to remain, and this is very important, if you're going to remain training fasted, it has to be consistent. You can't one day have a meal prior to, and then you do it for 3 days, and then you do it for a week, because your body needs to adapt and acclimate to training fasted. Or you're going to train fasted after you've had 3 or 4 workouts where there's a meal before, and you're going to go ahead and train legs, and you're going to feel like crap. It's not going to work. So acclimate your body for that consistency to do it one way or the other.
Nothing to add. Just make sure you're hydrated.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking too. That's like the number one thing is hydration. And who was I talking to recently that was talking about training? No, it wasn't VJ. Somebody was recently talking. Yeah, no, it was VJ talking about training fasted. He's using electrolytes now and sodium, like big old teaspoon of salt. And he was like, oh man, he's like, training his whole life. And he was like, man, I wish I learned this sooner, because it does make all the difference in the world. It's hard to get water in, especially when I'm tired in the morning. It's hard for me to get enough water in to be hydrated enough for a workout.
And to throw him a bone real quick, I still will say, have intra-carbs and intra-EAAs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're training fasted, okay. But if you're training fasted and you're not taking anything in while you're training, that's tough. I mean, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. That actually was a question that came up. I do these classes for other coaches sometimes, and the question was more pertaining for like a female trying to lose leg mass to get into the bikini division. And that was actually one of my things was train fasted, do cardio first, train fasted, no EAAs, no intra, and then do more cardio, and then don't eat for like a good couple hours if you can. If you can maintain a decent blood sugar level, we call it we're basically trying to do everything the opposite of anabolism, right? Like taking your body out of an anabolic state and put it in a catabolic state for but the other thing is she also needed to put on some more upper body mass. So it was like, we basically have catabolic days and then more anabolic days. And that was how I answered that one. So,
okay. Ooh, we got to cover this. Can you combine GH and test SIP in the same syringe?
Whoa.
I had the same look on my face when I read it initially.
Yeah. I'm not gonna
Water and oil don't mix.
Yeah,
Water and oil don't mix. I'll even go so far as to say you should not be combining water-based peptides. Like you shouldn't be combining GH with your BPC or your insulin or your, even though they're water-based. And I would have to talk to Scott Stevenson to get the exact answer, but I think there would be interaction between the molecules breaking down the disulfide bonds, and you might end up with just some expensive water at the end of the
I look at it the same way. I'm not even going to use, I don't know how you guys do it, but we obviously, most of us have at least 2 or 3 different peptides maybe in the fridge, hypothetically. And I might have one pin in there, a 3cc, that I will draw for, growth, and I'll use the same one for a week or 2. Yeah. And then I'll toss it. But if I put that same syringe in to mix a new vial of, say, melanotan, that pin goes in the tub because it's not going to go back into my expensive growth vial to reconstitute. It's just not. And that may be a little OCD, but I'm not gonna risk that for that. It's not a cross contamination, but at the same time, well, I mean, I guess it could be.
Well, it is. I mean,
basically,
you're introducing a foreign molecule to a substance that you want to stay intact and pure. And
my brain was, I agree. I guess my brain was saying cross contamination. I'm not even really thinking even of a bacteria standpoint. I'm thinking of just mixing the 2 compounds. So it still is a cross. It falls under the cross contamination. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And let's do this. Why would you not combine the oil and the water? I wouldn't, and maybe this is not even right, but I wouldn't combine the oil and the water because it's going to change the way that drug disperses once it's in the muscle. It's all of a sudden in a lipid base too, along with the water. You want your growth and your peptides to disperse quickly. That's not going to happen with a lipid base, right? Or when it's combined with oil. Am I okay?
No,
I mean,
seems
logical, seems sensical,
Yeah. Plus, why would you want to rob yourself of another injection? I mean, you only get to do 3,000 to 10,000 of them in your lifetime.
Right.
Why would you take that opportunity away from yourself?
And if you're going to create scar tissue to increase a weak body part, you might as well hit another injection, right?
And GH shots are nothing anyway. It's not like it's a big commitment or anything. I don't even count them as real shots,
Everyone's having problems with the NAD plus shots. You guys notice that?
Oh, yeah. I'm not using it. I don't have any clients that are using NAD plus shots.
Lots of welts, lots of, raised, inflammation and we're talking lasting for 3-4 days at a time where people are like, I don't want to take this anymore.
Yeah.
So,
hey, we got a question on my SLU progress. I did want to say, I'd been waiting to say one thing. And Andrew, I know you guys are running it over there too now. So I am certainly going to say that there is a diminishing return over time with SLU. I found initially I got that really strong cognitive boost from it with a given dose with 500 micrograms, because initially I was going to start 700, and then I took my first dose of 250, and I was like, yeah, this is really good. I'm happy with this. I think I'll just take that again, for my second dose, stayed at 500. If I could do it again, if I even had smaller caps, I would have started at 400 and then given myself room to build up with it over time. So heads up on that. And how are things going on your end, Andrew?
Good. Man, we had Rachel on it, and she's losing like 0.3 pounds a day, like without
so the
any
scale's
other
going down.
Yeah. Now we have her in a diet and cardio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She's in full, but no thyroid, no clenbuterol. Literally, that we're doing a very long, slow prep. We don't want to do anything quick or abrupt, and so I added the SLU in at 300 mics a day for her, and it's making some pretty dramatic changes on her physique, and it's not like we added more steps, we didn't pull more food. So I'm happy with it from a standpoint of someone who's in a dieting, in a prep mode. I'm using it at 600 mics a day right now, which I think I'm probably going to bump to probably 1,000.
Okay.
Just from talking to some of my friends that have been using it a little bit longer, and also listening to when we had Dean on and talked about his experience using it. The biggest thing I've noticed is my appetite increase is like, I'm hungry for meals again, and it's not like I can't eat food, but it was never like, oh, I'm hungry, after 2 hours, I want to eat a little early. Now I'm like, I could definitely get in there and eat my meals earlier. Which is something I haven't felt, I feel like, since like my late 20s, early 30s. So, and you guys just saw my diet. It's not like it's massive, but it's also not like it's, 200 grams of carbs a day or anything like that. Right. So, and I do feel like I got a little bit of a mental boost. I would agree with you, Scott, that kind of went away after 5 or 6 doses.
Okay.
Yeah. But, I'm interested to continue using it to help build my calories and then pull some calories when I start dieting, decently for the summer, and just seeing what I can get out of it.
Quick question for you guys. Do you think that the SLUs and the, retatrutide, stuff like that, is going to change the game as far as usage for T3, T4, and Clen?
I think it's going to change the way people diet for shows in general. I feel like people are still going to use T3 and Clen. I feel like, I mean, if you have all these modalities that are all going to work and are relatively safe, I think people are going to kitchen sink it and be able to do less work, if you get what I'm saying.
I don't know. Okay, I see what you're saying. I was looking at it more from a, and especially now that I'm coming into a diet, phase myself right now, it likely is going to, in my case, decrease the Clen and T3, T4 use. I mean, pretty much at least right out of the gate. And then from there, I see what you're saying, though. I didn't look at it the other way of we'll take more drugs,
of course,
and not do as much work. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, also knowing that a drug like SLU, from the research we've seen, is safe. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we've seen negative studies on it. There's not a lot of studies on it. That's the problem. But and we obviously don't have long-term use. But and maybe Steve, who's listening now, probably has some insight on that. But I feel like, I think it's going to be another tool that people use. And I think you're right, though, Skip. I think it might prolong when a coach would add in, T3. Or maybe we'll, instead of using Clen at 10 weeks out, like I might normally do with someone, we're not going to use it till 7 weeks out, or only when we really need it. Or even
smaller dosages, or just not to the doses that you were using before. I see the potential there that it could really change the game. I mean, we were talking about that with Retta, 4 or 5 weeks ago. I do see it's going to have quite an impact, if it's not already, quite frankly.
Yeah.
We had somebody ask us blood work results on from SLU. I've only heard of other people talking about their results. I haven't seen any yet. I've only been on it for a few weeks now. So eventually I'm going to find out. I'm sure that Andrew is too. I think,
shout out
to
Andreas, that's my client. I just want
right on, man.
Yeah.
I think this, Skip, I think that it depends on how you look at it, right? With like T3 and Clen is kind of like we were talking about with Dean, is you've got the levers, right? So you've got the training lever, you've got the diet lever, and then you've got the drug lever. And within the diet, I see them as multiple levers, because we have like the carb lever, the fat lever, and then in the gear side, we've got the fat burner levers, and that's a whole slew. So I see it, no pun intended,
Yeah,
You heard what I said there.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we have some additional levers is the way I see it. So if I were to have somebody run SLU and we were to get the effects we wanted, maybe we wouldn't need to use T3, or maybe we'd use less. Maybe we'd edit in later. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It probably would be a cumulative effect of less total compounds, you know. I don't know.
Let me also add in, because, you know, I've got a lot of clients that are like, hey, you know, I'm interested in trying especially safe things that we know, at least it's not like T3 or Clen, not affecting your heart, like that kind of stuff. So I've been adding SLU to a lot of people's plans lately. And I will say I've had a couple clients that had some breakthrough like fat loss when like things were moving like very, very slowly, and it's like really starting to pick up now. So
nice.
Yeah, and people that are in fat loss phases, already using, you know, thyroid, already using cycling Clen in and out. So I do think it's a good fat loss supplement. I really do.
Like Skip had said with the Retta, you know, he was like, you're like, I don't want to have people taking things that I haven't used myself. And that was one of the main reasons I wanted to try SLU.
Same.
I'd heard so much, and Steve was telling me like, man, I think this would be really good for you specifically. But then I thought, you know what, I also want to know. So at this point I have 2 people that are getting ready to start it, but I haven't had a bunch of people using it yet. So I'm going to look forward though, because I'm at a point now where I'm pretty comfortable with bringing it in. But I think, like I said, I'm going to keep it on the lower side and see what we get and leave us room to build. But you know what, between me and you, if I already have a deficit of, say, maybe I do have some mitochondrial dysfunction, then maybe I would notice a better benefit in that energy boost than you would if you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we all have mitochondrial dysfunction, though. I mean, just
to some degree. Yeah.
We live in a world where we're absorbing plastics.
Right.
We're
you know what I mean? I was thinking plastics.
Plastics in general, but just all the other toxins that we come in exposure to from the colognes and the deodorants and all the food additives. If you're not growing everything yourself in your garden and killing your own chickens, etc. You know, so I do think we all have some metabolic dysfunction related to mitochondrial inefficiency. So I think this will be big.
What about this one? I'm curious if you all thought. Wait, oh no, I wanted to go up one. I wanted to go to Kyle, because Kyle said, what dosage would you recommend for NPP? I've run test at 1200 and EQ at 900. How much NPP to add to my current dosages? Are we to guess that he's running those dosages of test and EQ right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what are the doses again?
1200 test, 900 EQ.
1200, 900, okay.
I would try 350 a week and start there. You know, 100 mgs every other day, I think, is a good place to start. You can always go higher if you don't feel like you're seeing anything, but I think that's a good spot to start.
Well, I'm glad you went first, because I would have said 600.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
You know why I went to that, honestly? It was just because at 12 and 9, my brain immediately went to, okay, that's 2100, but the 600 is half of the testosterone dosage. But you know what? You starting lower, I can't argue against starting lower. And like you said, if you don't see, you can always increase from there. So
yeah. The other thing is, like, you know, when we recommend drugs, especially if someone else hasn't used that drug before, we can talk about like what has worked best for us personally, like when we started to feel it or when we started to see or to elicit a change. And for me, it was always like around that 350, 400 mark with the NPP. And maybe for you, like you see better results at 600, 300, 400 might be a waste of time and just a waste of oil that you're putting in your body.
No, I just think more is better. I don't know.
Generally, I do too. Okay. Generally, I do too.
I'm being funny. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a little debate about growth hormone going on in the comments here. I've always abided by GH at night for growth, morning for fat loss, but lots of non-stupid people debating whether it should be taken at night now at all. And I'm interested in your guys' thoughts. This is Tanya Miller. She says the debate is interrupting the natural nighttime GH spike apparently. And Andrea said, no, I'm sorry, it was Stefan. He said the pharmaceutical companies want you to take it at night in one shot for a reason.
Yeah, but it's also made for a vastly different modality than or reason that bodybuilders take it. Like in the paperwork, they're assuming, it's someone that's suffering from a GH deficiency. And they also oddly want you to throw the rest of the bottle away.
I know, right?
It's just like,
Yeah. Same with insulin. It's like, I don't think so. We're not going to do it that way.
Yeah. Let me tell you my experience.
No.
No, only for you. If you send it to me, I'll be like,
exactly.
But my experience with GH, whether someone takes it first thing in the morning, pre-workout, post-workout, before bed, microdosing 4 different times per day, getting up in the middle of it all works. It works almost every other time. Any scenario you can think of, GH is going to work. Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Moral of the story, GH works.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just comes down to those little things, like as an example, I've said it before, I'll say it again. When I take it at bedtime, it messes with my sleep quality. Otherwise, okay, I'd probably take it at sleep, but I've tracked my sleep now for almost 8 years and I see it. So that is in my opinion, a good enough reason. Now, I'm not going to go at it with Stefan because that's his perspective. I had this argument, maybe with Stefan, back and forth in the YouTube section, maybe a month ago. If it wasn't with Stefan, it was someone basically saying the same thing. And my argument is this: you can go, and I made this point as clear as I could. You can go with what the companies tell you to do. If it says on the package, Lilly package, to take it a certain way, take it a certain way. But as you mentioned, Andrew, and that was my argument as well, those instructions come from people, predominantly kids who are GH deficient. It's a completely different milieu. Or you can take the advice from people who have used it extensively, and not only with themselves, but with a massive amount of clients over a lot of years. And I'll just leave it at that. I don't care which way you go. They're your gains, and you can do whatever you want to do. And if it works for you, great. Take it or leave it. It is what it is.
All right. And back to Ryan. So Ryan, who's with us, who had that huge fat loss, he said, I was curious if y'all thought that 240 was low enough body weight to start a test cycle at 250 milligrams per week. I'm nowhere near as far as I was, but I worry that my body fat, sorry, I got to blow this up a little bit, but I worry about the body fat I do have causing aromatization.
Deal with the aromatization, counter it, get on the test if your test was 416. That's all I have to say on that. That's the same guy, right? Who lost all that weight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess, so is he looking to bring his test to high normal, or is he looking to be super physiological?
He said cycle.
You know what I'm saying?
He said cycle.
So honestly, I would not cycle in his situation, meaning go on and off. Like, I would probably start with a base TRT level and, try 50 milligrams every other day, and then get your labs tested. And I bet that puts you somewhere in the 900s, which might be where you want to stay. And because I feel like if you throw in 250 a week, that could bring you to 900. It could bring you to 1500, and then you're pulling that testosterone back out. And not only are you going to be 418 or whatever it was, but you're going to have a lag period where you're in the friggin' tanks. You might have next to no testosterone for a little while after that initial testosterone clears and before your HPTA kicks back in. So I would rather, in his situation, because I feel like he's doing something so drastic to his body. He's lost almost half his body weight, and he's continuing to try to lose half of his body weight from 380 down to 240, and I assume he probably wants to get down under 200 or something like that, which is amazing, by the way. I would probably not be doing swings in the hormones. I would be just trying to get myself into optimal levels, and continue his goal on fat loss primarily. That's my take on it.
Just get out. My point is just get away from that 400 test level, if at all possible.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this thing up here. I have to go eat some food, or I'm just going to fall over and you guys will see me pass out on the show. No, it's not going to be like that. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you tuning in to another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear. We could use questions, as I mentioned, for the next episode, so definitely comment on YouTube. And if you're this far in and you're not subscribed, then you want to hit the subscribe button, guys. We have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. Hit the bell, because YouTube doesn't like to let you know about all your favorite content. I subscribe to like 100 gun channels, and they don't show me any of those things anymore. They show you what they want to show you. So if you enjoy our stuff and you want to see more of it, then be sure that you hit the bell. Of course, reach out to these guys if you're interested in coaching, or reach out to myself. I'll have all of our contact info down below in the description. So hit that description up. We also have the links to truenutrition.com. You can get your Team Skip blend over there. Use our code THINK. Supplementsource.ca for Canadians. We don't have a code for them. So all our Canadians, just tell Supplement Source to give them a hug for us. All right. You can write that in the comments when you place your order there. And for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, guys, we'll see you soon. Thanks to everybody tuning in the live stream. And thanks, guys, for joining me and sharing your years of education and passion for the sport.